How do we perceive ourselves? Is it a matter of understanding how you feel, or by listening to how you're supposed to feel? What the mind dwells upon, the body acts upon.
I was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance, manic depression.
They diagnosed me with having ADD.
They told me I had conduct disorder,
ADHD,
mild depression,
Major depression,
depressive,
borderline personality disorder,
depression and schizophrenia,
There is no such thing as a mental disorder. A mental disorder is what someone says it is. What defines the stature of the diagnosis is the amount of power and influence the person giving the diagnosis holds. Though power and influence are hard to come by without credibility, in conjunction with the FDA, the pharmaceutical companies, and the doctors themselves, they manufacture their own. The official checklist of mental disorders is a textbook called the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. There are no statistics in this book, however. Along with pseudo-scientific claims and biased research, the book is marketed as a scientific reference. Though the DSM is surrounded with an aura of scientific precision, it is not scientifically based at all.
If you have 27 ways to bill in DSM, that's 27 ways to bill. If you have 300, that's 300 ways to bill. So you could pretty much find anyone walking on the street that could fit into a DSM somehow.
Adolescent rebellion disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. Arithmetic learning disorder. General anxiety disorder is a recent diagnosis.
Each DSM diagnosis has a 5-digit code with the decimal point. The implications of that are to retain that each illness is completely independent and different from the one prior to it. Illness 403.16 isn't somehow scientifically proven in a way different from 403.17, which is commonly perceived as the truth, but when asked, even physicians admit nothing can be further.
We have no diagnostic reliable markers for almost any illness there is in the DSM.
What we're testing for in psychiatry, it's hard to say because there's nothing specifically.
But as far as a test that's clinically useful, basically we're not there yet.
We don't have any laboratory tests that we can use to determine whether somebody does or doesn't have a mental illness.
There are no good biological tests for detecting mental illness.
There is no test, there's no biopsy you can do.
There is no chemical test right now.
There are no specific tests to confirm the diagnosis or show the improvement, like any blood tests or any x-rays or anything like that.
Oh, in my practice I don't do any tests. I just speak with people and listen to them, and then I make a decision in what kind of illness.
Psychiatry in all of this time doesn't have one case report of one disease validated, not one. What they do is they meet at the American Psychiatric Association. They meet in the DSM committee, Diagnostic Statistical Manual Committee, and they vote on making new behavioral and emotional disorders, and they vote, and then they start immediately calling them diseases. And they tell the public these are diseases. Total fraud.
There is no rational science behind what they think is the cause of these symptoms. The medications that are being given to people are, without exception, introducing chemicals that are altering the brain in ways which can be very damaging. And I'll go a step further and say that in the absence of a proven chemical imbalance for which the medications are, quote, rebalancing or fixing, the medications are in fact toxic.
But the fraud that was chemical imbalance theory could not hide the mounting evidence that these newly developed drugs were linked directly to terrifying side effects, including akathisia.
Akathisia is like an extreme inner nervous agitation. People describe it as wanting to crawl out of their own skins. And this happens with great frequency, and it is absolutely, totally well understood to be associated with suicide and violence and homicide.
After years and cases upon cases of violence, self-mutilation, homicide, and death, in 1991, health experts, legislators, and the public finally convinced the FDA to hold an investigation.
I know without
absolute certainty that if Charles had any idea of the side effects of Prozac, he would never have taken it.
I had two sons, David Lee, age 8, Billy 16, the wife 20 years old, gone. I'll tell you why. After being on Prozac for 21 days, my wife shot and killed both of these two boys right here. She turned the gun to herself and shot herself twice.
I took the 9mm automatic, sat down on the bed and put the gun to my head. And I blew a 4-inch hole out the back of my arm instead of my head. Thank God I was a lousy shot. Had someone looked further into Prozac, steps could have been taken to avoid it.
Is there an alliance, an unholy alliance between the psychiatric community, the pharmaceutical industry, and the FDA? And the answer is yes.
How many people have I cured? Well, there are no real cures right now in psychiatry.
Idea of any, you asked me about the issue about how many people I've cured. I don't know that any of us are ever completely cured of anything.
I have not been able to cure many patients.
I have cured none of my patients.
So you have to ask the classic Roman question, legal question, cui bono, who benefits? The people who make the diagnosis.